What have you been doing, Rick? Because the rest of us is probably just going a little as stir crazy as you, but what have you been doing all your time?
Well, I tell you what, Paul, I'm doing the responsible thing. I'm staying home. Governor Inslee said stay home and take care of yourselves and stay healthy. That's what we need to do. Our first responders, as everybody knows, have been incredible. The doctors and the nurses, they don't need us, coming into the hospital or the doctor's office. So it's amazing what you guys do. Stay healthy. So I've been at home here and relaxing. I'm doing a lot of cooking. I've got some Italian sauce going right now with Italian sausage, my mom's recipe. Made a pot roast that lasted me 4 or 5 days, cooking salmon. Doing a lot of cooking. I cleaned out my junk drawer. I cleaned out the drawer with the Tupperware and the lids and everything so I can find everything. I've learned card tricks on YouTube. So, and I've watched a lot of movies. And so Sandlot and League of Their Own, 42, the Jackie Robinson story, and many, many other movies, just trying to get through this with everybody else in our country and really around the world.
The meatballs and the sausage and all that stuff, that's probably something you've been doing for years, huh?
Oh, yeah. When I was a kid, I watched my mom, and she was the greatest cook in the world. She was amazing. So, yeah, I enjoy cooking. It's a part of my life. I love it, and when I can stand there and cook, I think of my mother, and brings back a lot of great memories.
How about now? It's a beautiful spring day, a little bit chilly, but
yeah.
How strange is it for you to not be at the ballpark doing what you love?
Yeah, it's very weird because right now we should have had opening day on March the 26th against the Texas Rangers. We should be a week into the season, but because of the situation with this coronavirus, this deadly virus going around, we have to do what we need to do, and that's stay at home and stay healthy and get a grip on this thing. In baseball, this is my 46th year in baseball, 8 years in the minor leagues and 38 years in the big leagues. You're trained to be somewhere every second of every day, getting in your car, going to the ballpark and doing a game, and then get in on the bus, go to the airport, fly to the next city, and doing a game and doing a game and doing a game and doing it over and over and every day for 7 months out of the year. And now it's all come to a screeching halt, and we have to do what we need to do. And that's be responsible, but it's very strange not being at a ballpark and working with my buddies in the radio booth and television booth and seeing all the fans and the people that work in the ballpark. And like the fans, I miss the game like crazy, but we're gonna come back. We'll be back, we're gonna get through this, and baseball will be back.
I just want to mention to those watching on Facebook Live, we timed it out so when the garbage truck came by.
Yeah, it's a pickup day Wednesday morning, so I got the recycling and the garbage out there, and I'm all ready to go, so we got some noise going on out there too. So, yeah, hi Facebook, hello TV.
All right, I'm going to give you another just off-the-cuff question while we wait for the truck to kind of leave. Let's talk about the sign stealing. It's a little bit beaten up by now, but we've never gotten your opinion about it. So what did you think about the whole Astros thing and sign stealing in baseball in general?
I've heard a lot of comments from a lot of people in the game of baseball, from Hank Aaron to everybody else and in between. I think it's terrible. You can't use technology to steal signs the way that they did it with their own camera and a monitor by the dugout there. And A.J. Hinch even beat up the monitor twice and still didn't stop it. Cheating's been going on in baseball for 150 years, but you got to do it the right way with your savvy and your intelligence and picking up signs. And if a catcher can't hide its signs, that's their problem. But with technology, you can't do it. So Hank Aaron said all those guys should be banned from the game of baseball. That was Hank Aaron, the greatest home run hitter of all time. The greatest home run hitter of all time. And so I think it's terrible. It's cheating. The players, obviously, the other players don't like it. I applaud Mike Fiers for coming out and talking when he did, about it. So the Astros are going to have a really rough time this year when we get back and really moving forward. So I think it's a black stain on the game of baseball, but really not on baseball, but on the Houston Astros and what they did. They cheated, and it was totally irresponsible, and we can't have that in the game of baseball the way that they did it.
You look back at the HGH and the steroids and the things like, it seems like baseball recovered from that. How long will it take for baseball to recover from something like this?
Well, baseball recovers. If they really came out and made a mea culpa and said, I'm sorry, their apology was, not the greatest apology in the world after, the things that I saw. So it's going to take a while. I think it'll take a while for people to, especially the players, when it's your own brethren within the game of baseball that's really upset with what you did. That's going to be a tough stigma for the Astros to get by. It's going to be very difficult for them. The fans aren't going to let them forget, I guarantee you.
I thought being down at spring training, and we were down there together for a little bit this spring, but
yeah.
Listening to Scott Service's take on it, I thought he did the right thing and the right approach, where he had his team meeting and he didn't bring up the subject at all, because they have their own things they're working on as a young team.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that the Mariners had on their plate going into spring training this year. Those issues will eventually take care of themselves. Houston has to deal with that. But with this spring and with this ball club, there were so many new players coming into the organization. This is really an exciting time for the Mariners. They had 71 guys in camp. At the time spring training was shut down, there were 51 players in camp. But Jerry Dipoto really filled up this organization with very, very good young talent. And I had a chance to see that in October when I went down to watch some Arizona Fall League games, and especially during the spring. The talent is there. Jerry took this organization from one of the worst farm systems in baseball a couple of years ago to the 5th best farm system in baseball. And the young players were really moving forward. It was great to see Jarred Kelenic, who's only 20 years of age, and Julio Rodriguez is only 19. Evan White was going to be the starting first baseman and will be the starting first baseman. Justice Sheffield, his maturation process last year, along with Justin Dunn, and all the other young players, and Jake Fraley and Kyle Lewis, who came up and really burst onto the scene with home runs in 6 of his first 10 games. It's really fun to watch. The talent is there, and these kids are for real. So that was the rough part about spring training, because the kids were playing so well. But we'll get back. Baseball will get back. We'll see those kids in a Mariners uniform real soon.
Well, I know you're always optimistic and positive about this franchise, and so and your fans and Mariners fans, they understand that from you. But I don't think you're just drinking the Kool-Aid this time, and I think that having seen some of that talent up close and personal this past spring, tell me a couple of guys that jumped out of off the page for you that are ready to make the jump to the bigs, maybe sooner than expected.
First of all, it was Kyle Lewis last year. When he came up and did what he did, he had about 268 down at AA Arkansas, and I think he had about 16 home runs. But he came in and hit with power and hit the ball the other way. When you see a young player be able to do that, to drive the ball the other way like he did, that's really impressive. You know that he can handle being up in the big leagues. So that's the kid that really stood out last year. And Justice Sheffield, who was able to come up and get better and better in that starting rotation, and Justin Dunn. But to see, the talent and the confidence of Jarred Kelenic, Evan White, even young Julio Rodriguez, those are the kids that really stood out in my mind. And there's a huge wave of youngsters really coming through the organization right now. Logan Gilbert, we had a chance to see him make a few starts down at spring training this year. He got up to AA last year, high 8 to AA last year. So the talent is there, and I believe in these kids, and that's what the Astros did years ago. It wasn't that long ago. Houston lost 100 or more games 3 years in a row. The Chicago Cubs did the same thing. They didn't win a World Series for 108 years, and it worked out for them. This is going to work out because I saw the talent, and the talent is there.
The one guy that jumped out for me, and you mentioned him, Jarred Kelenic. I mean, he's such a character, and him and his buddy Julio Rodriguez together are just a comedy team. But Kelenic, even Dipoto said that you may see him sooner. He'd have to make a big jump this spring, but I thought he was well on his way to doing that, and I think Mariners fans are going to love this guy.
Oh, no kidding. He has so much confidence in himself and his ability. He can hit with power, he can run, he can throw, he can play defense. This kid was one of the top draft picks only a few years ago by the Mets. Mariners got him a few off seasons ago in that big trade for R.B. Cano and also Edwin Diaz. But the way that he just walks around and fills out that uniform, he looks like a big leaguer. He believes at the age of 20 he should be here right now, and he'll get here. He's probably going to start off down in the minor leagues early in the season, but Jarred Kelenic will be here very, very soon. He's going to be one of the bright young stars really in the game of baseball. He's something.
He's so cocky.
He is.
But at the same time, it's more of a confidence thing, and it's almost like he doesn't mean to. It's just the way he is. But to listen to him talk, you're like,
yeah,
man, he really just say that? Like,
I know.
He said he called that home run ball in the dugout. So he's kind of funny in that way, and he's fun to listen to.
Yeah, I know. And he's not cocky. He's confident. You know, he knows that he's good. You know, he feels like he should be here right now. He's going to have trials. He's going to have tribulations. Everybody does. Even when Junior came up, he got a base hit his first at bat, but then he went 0 for like 16, you know, after that. But he figured things out. Everybody's going to struggle. This kid will get here. He will struggle, but he's going to figure things out. He's going to be outstanding. You
know, you were a young and up-and-coming star back in the day, in the early 80s, and you had a chance. You got down to the finalists of getting a Mariners job to sit alongside the late, great Dave Niehaus.
Yeah.
You were down you were one of 2 finalists, and as I see the story, you did something the day before. You were supposed to meet with the owner and get this thing locked up for Rick Rizzs. But you kind of tell me that story and tell the viewers that story of what you did the day before maybe the biggest interview of your life.
You had enough time?
Yeah, I got enough time.
Do you have enough time? Okay.
Enough time.
All right. I did one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. I went to a cookie eating contest. It was the start of the Girl Scouts campaign, the cookie campaign. And when I was in Columbus, Ohio, it was my 8th year in the minor leagues. I was with the Yankees AAA team in Columbus, Ohio, doing their play-by-play. It got down to 2 of us. And the night before I was to fly out from Columbus, Ohio to Southern California to Santa Ana to meet with George Arduous, who was at the time was the owner of the ball club, I went to this cookie eating contest at the local mall in Columbus. There was 8 radio and TV personalities who were in this contest. So I ate, Paul, 33 cookies in 3 minutes, and it was the dumbest thing every day. I didn't even win. I won this big old chocolate chip cookie from Mrs. Fields there. I finished in 3rd place. But anyway, the next day I was supposed to fly out to Southern California, but my chest was killing me. I thought I was having a heart attack. I had to go to work in the morning. I got up at 4 o'clock every day. I was the sports director at WBNS Radio in Columbus. So I had to be at the studio at the radio station at 5 o'clock, and I was on the air, and then I was going to fly out to Southern California. But my chest was killing me, so I called up the team physician, Doc Stevens, with the Clippers. I said, get to the hospital right away. So I went to the hospital, and I was hooked up to an EKG machine, and he wouldn't let me leave because he wanted to make sure I didn't have a heart attack. But what I did was I stressed my sternum from the doggone cookies that I ate the night before. So I was going to miss my flight. So I had to call Melody Tucker, who was our director of broadcasting at the time. I called her up and said, Melody, I'm going to miss my flight. I'm going to miss my appointment with George Arduous. She said, why? Well, the Girl Scouts had their cookie campaign. I went to a cookie eating contest last night. I stressed my sternum, so I'm going to miss my appointment. She said, okay, I'll call Mr. Arduous and then call me back in about half an hour. So in half an hour later, I was in that blue smock I was hooked up to an EKG machine. They wheeled me out to the front desk, no cell phones at the time. So I called her up again. She says, Mr. Arduous is leaving for Greece in a couple of days. Can you be there tomorrow? I said, I will rip these wires off my chest. I will be there tomorrow morning. So anyway, I flew to Southern California, and I met with Mr. Arduous. I walked in his office. We sat, and we talked for about an hour. But then he looked at me, and he went, now, why did you miss your appointment yesterday? And I went, oh, I went to this cookie eating contest for the Girl Scouts and ate 33 cookies in 3 minutes. I stressed my sternum, so we laughed about it for about 5 minutes. And then we talked for a few more minutes, and then I'll never forget this, as long as I live, 8 years in the minor leagues. He reached across his desk, shook my hand, says, anybody willing to risk his life for the Girl Scouts is my kind of guy. He said, welcome aboard. And I got the job. And so the Girl Scouts helped me get my first major league job with the Mariners back in 1983. Thank you.
Man,
so I buy Girl Scouts cookies every year.
That is an awesome story, man. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people, maybe the people that know you and have read about you over the years, but for the people that haven't,
it was
the young
crazy.
fans out there, it's a great story.
Yeah.
So if you 33 cookies in 3 minutes,
yeah.
what the winner? Do you remember the winner?
I think he ate about 36, 37. But if you ate a cookie that was cream filled, it counted as 2. And we got to wash it down with a lot of milk and everything. So I went for the cream filled and the trefoils, the shortbread cookies, and the Thin Mints, and so I will never do that as long as I live, baby.
That's hilarious, man.
Yeah.
But you were close,
Don't do
man.
it.
You were that close.
I was close.
The winner only had 36.
I was close. It was 36, 34 and me 33, something like that. So I finished in third.
All right, man.
But
that's a great story.
Yeah, it was fun.
It really is funny. And it's awesome that George just said, you know what, you're good. And Dave Niehaus had already given you, he kind of gave you the rubber stamp too.
Yeah, if it wasn't for Dave Niehaus, I wouldn't be here. He got me here twice. He got me here as a young broadcaster in 1983 because he had to listen to all those cassette tapes, back in the day, and get it down to 2 of us. And so he helped get me here in 1983. Then after 9 years, I went to Detroit, tried to replace a legend there in Ernie Hartwell. Things didn't work out after 3 years. I called David, and he said, we'll get you back here. So he got me back, and thank God I didn't miss the 1995 season, which, by the way, is playing right now on my television. Here right now. Mariners win, by the way, in 5 games, and Edgar hits a double down the left field line, and Joey scores from third, and Junior scores all the way from first base in the bottom of the 11th inning, and the Mariners win the ball game 6-5. Save baseball in Seattle. Thank goodness for that 95 ball club.
See, the people watching you right now that weren't even alive then, so you just told them a little history. All right, one last question for you. 20th anniversary of the Kingdome implosion. So it's kind of a, it was such a relic, but man, it sure had its advantages for both the Mariners and the Seahawks. What about that building do you remember the most? Maybe not so much about Mariners, but what about that building?
Yeah, the Kingdome wasn't, the greatest ballpark in the world, but it was our home. It was our home. It was the Seahawks' home. The Sonics played there. They had monster trucks in there and motocross. They had everything in there. But it was our home. What I remember about the Kingdome, especially in 1995, were 56,000, almost 60,000 fans filling the Kingdome, and the noise that they made, and the energy that they gave that ball club, that 95 ball club of Edgar Martinez and Jay Buhner and Ken Griffey Jr. and Randy Johnson, Little Joey Cora, Mike Blowers and Tino Martinez, Dan Wilson, all those guys. It gave them the energy to do what they did. If they didn't do what they did at the time they did it, we wouldn't be here. They saved baseball in the Pacific Northwest. It had a concrete dome, but we had our wonderful moments in it. That's where this team and this organization saved baseball. We had some great moments in there and great ball games to do that. And I'll never forget, Dan Wilson and I were in the clubhouse in Peoria watching the implosion of the Kingdome. And we were standing there, and we saw the explosions go around the Kingdome, and it went down in 19 seconds. Here's a building made of concrete and rebar and steel, and it went down in 19 seconds. And Dan and I just looked at each other, and we're both crying. I said, "You crying?" He said, "You crying?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Are you emotional?" I said, "Yeah," because that was our home. The Kingdome was home. Then we moved into a few weeks later. We moved in July 15th, 1999. We moved into the most beautiful ballpark in baseball, which is now T-Mobile Park. But Dan Wilson and I standing there, we were, got pretty emotional because we remember what they did in that house in the Kingdome.
Yeah, it's funny how big events like that, you remember where you were at the time when that blew up. And boy,
Randy's no-hitter.
Yeah.
Luis Sojo's base hit, swinging a ground ball down the first base line, sneaks on by Snow, into the bullpen. Here comes Blowers, here comes Tino, here comes Joey, throw home, cut off by Langston, relay home, gets up by Ellenson, Cora scores. Here comes Sojo scores, everybody scores! And the Mariners went on to beat the California Angels 9-1 in the one-game playoff in 1995 to get to the American League Division Series. And it was Randy Johnson against Mark Langston, but Luis Sojo had that huge base hit with the bases loaded in the bottom of the 7th, and it was a close game, 1-0. Langston against Johnson, and then Luis got that big base hit, and I tell you what, every time I saw him after he went to the Yankees as a player and a coach, I'd go in the clubhouse at Yankee Stadium and give him a big hug. I go, "Luis, thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. Thank you very much." He said, "Thank you." So that was a lot of good stuff in the Kingdome.
Yeah, well, that was awesome. Great stories, Rick, and we appreciate you letting us bust into your backyard on Garbage Day and talk to you.
No problem.